Okay, today I'm going to go over custom line types. They're not too bad. You just got to take your time and go through them. Once again, you use Notepad. You save it as a .lin file, so make sure you look at all files when you're opening them so you can find them, because remember the txt file is the default. Start out with the lesson here. So in the lesson, it's telling you about the labs that you have to do, and it's also there's also one out of the examples. So there are points in this lesson. In AutoCAD, basically all these line types have that you're used to using, like a border line type. There's actually an AutoCAD lin file, and this is what you're going to write. So you can see the beginning of it's got a semicolon. That's just text, so you can always put semicolon in AutoCAD programs in Notepad and put whatever text, like your name or whatever, on it, and it ignores that. It does need to start with an asterisk, and that'll be the title of the line type. And then usually you want to try to do an example of what it's going to look like. So these are just underscores right from your keyboard, and that's a period, or that's more underscore. So you're trying to show the CAD operator. CAD operator is basically what your line type roughly is going to look like using keystrokes off the keyboard. And then down here is the line that you program it. Okay, and it's really not as bad as it looks. Okay, and you can have one file can have multiple in it. I think most ones we're doing are going to have a single line in them, so they'll basically be a just like these two lines, and that's it. Okay, this is, like I said, this is the default AutoCAD lin file, which is the same as the one you're going to write, but it has every line type that AutoCAD has by default. So you can see they programmed all these in here, and they're not too complicated. So they get a little bit more and more complicated as you go, but they're definitely not too bad. So to load a line type, you basically, let me delete this off here, turn everything off here. To load a line type, it's pretty simple. You go to properties. Of course, my screen shrunk down here a little bit, and there's the line types right here. Okay, the bottom one. Drop that down, and you pick other. Okay, and then over here you just pick load. All right, and then you can go get any file you want. These are the default ones, of course. That are in the AutoCAD search path. I don't think you have to change search path. You just got to go pick file and go pick the one you want from your U drive or your C drive, wherever you're saving them at. Okay, and that'll load that line type file. So that's pretty simple. Once you load it, you also got to pick it and then hit OK. So like I'll show you that here in a second when I get one made. Line types usually are changed on a specific layer. So usually if you're going to create a line type, usually you'll go to layers and layer properties, and you'll create a layer for it. So like this hid would be like a hidden layer, right? I just shortened it up a little bit, but if you make a special one, like you're going to make zigzag later, if you're actually going to use that in drawing, usually you'll create a layer for that, and that lets you set the line type, set the color, and set how thick it's going to be on the print. Okay, but that way you can set all three things in here. You just right click, new layer. I usually give it the name of the line type when you have a custom line type. You can use this for a lot of different things. Some places I've seen it is like in wiring. You can call out the voltage of a wire drawn in, like 120 or 240, and draw the lines with that. It was just a number, 120, 240 volt, or DC or AC or whatever. So you can actually make a line that says that in there. The other places I've seen it, where I worked at Stevens before, we had a lot of dust collection, they're huge. They're 3-foot diameter dust collection pipes, all the way down to 3-inch dust collection pipes all over the plant. So we drew lines with the size of the pipes, and that was our dust collection system. And all you had to do was draw a line showing the size of it, which is pretty important when you have a whole factory run by the dust collection. So there's a lot of different things you can do with line types and creating your own, and they're pretty simple to create once you get the hang of it. The scale of the line type. So say you're drawing a house, and I show a hidden line by default has a dash 1/8 of an inch long. So like if I go to, just to show you here, go to my hidden line type here, or my hidden layer. Now I could have changed line type and done the same thing. So if I draw a line here hidden, you can see this line type. So by default, this dash is 1/8 of an inch long, and this, well, evidently it's a little bit different than that. It's close to that though. Roughly 1/8 of an inch long and 1/8 of an inch long here. We can actually look at it and see what the coding is for it. So hidden is down here. There's hidden. So it's a 1/4 inch long, evidently, a 1/4 inch long line, and then the space is a negative in front of it, and it is 1/8 of an inch long. Okay, so that's by default. So you have to scale this up. So say you're drawing a house and you want the hidden lines to show the cabinets or something like that, or the wall cabinets. You have to scale it up, because if this is only a 1/4 inch long and your house is 40 feet long, you're never going to see this little bitty dash that's 1/8 and a 1/4. So you usually typically scale it up, however, the opposite of whatever your sheet is scaled down. So like if you scale your sheet down 1/24, which would be 1/2 inch equals a foot, then you would scale the line type up to 24. And it's easy to do that. You just type LTS for line type scale on the command line, hit enter, and put 24, and it scales it all up. And default is 1, so set it back to 1 if you don't want it to be scaled up. Okay. So that's the scaling. Like I said, all the standard ones are in the .lin file. Not really sure where it keeps it, but it's if you go to options like we've been doing, and you go to support files, it's in here somewhere. Okay, that's where. So you could actually go into that file and change it. I don't see it jumping out at me. I don't think it's on its own special place. No, I don't see one that says line type there. So sometimes they have special spots for them. We'll see that as we go along. But I don't see it. There's a template one right there. But there's none that say line type. So I think it's just in the standard beginning ones, one of these locations. So, but if you work for a company, what you do is you change that autocad.lin file and add yours in there, and then everybody has access to them. You just add yours to it. Okay, it's nothing any fancier than that. You just basically, at the bottom here, you put all your custom ones, user defined ones. So down here, you just put a bunch of your own. So add them to it, and everybody in the whole company would have access to it that way. Let's see here. Okay, so the line type definitions, the way they work, the way the program works, first line, you can always put a semicolon and whatever information you want to try to explain things. But typically, what you have is on the first line of the coding, you have an asterisk, you have whatever you're going to give it as a name, and then you have a little description about it. Okay, and that will actually show up if you do the line types here. Okay, so this is the name, and this is the description right here. Okay, it tells a little bit more about it. It says it's half scale, and you tried to show you what it's going to look like on this one. Okay, some of them they left out the description, but most of them they got them in there. Okay, like continuous, they didn't put any example of it. They could have just drawn a continuous underscore line there, but they didn't. Okay, so that's the description right there. The pattern, now this is how it works. So a positive number represents a dashed length. Okay, and kind of did these out of order. So you begin with the letter A for alignment that keeps the beginning and the ends equal length. So if I draw a line, a hidden line, the beginning of it and the end of it's going to be the same size. They'll basically divide it by whatever size and leave them the same, so you don't have one longer than the other on the end of it. It kind of centers it up. Okay, that's what the alignment does. All right, so you put an A in there for that, and then a positive number represents how long the dash is. So like on that eighth or that hidden one we looked at, that was a 1/4. Okay, so in this example it's 0.75. So this is an example of a long, short, dot, and another short. Okay, so it's got a 3/4 inch long, and then it's going to have a space of 1/8 of an inch. That's why it's got a negative in front of it. A negative in front of it represents a space. Okay, a 0 represents a dot. Okay, so this has alignment 3/4 inch long line, 1/8 of an inch long space, another 1/8 of an inch long line, another 1/8 of an inch long space, a 0 which means a dot, and then an 1/8 inch space, 1/8 inch line, 1/8 inch space. Honestly, I think I got those messed up there. 1/8 inch, yeah, 1/8 inch space on the end of it. And a lot of times you'll put a space on the end of it so that it'll automatically start off. If you connect them, it'll start off with a line, or a space between whatever you want to do with it. And then you save it in Notepad as a .lin file. So it's pretty easy. Just basically, you can't see the bottom of my screen, but I'm typing in Notepad, right? Okay. I'm going to pick the Notepad app. And then you just basically, I'm going to copy and paste this in here instead of retyping it, but you could basically, so like this example here. So that way I don't make any typos either, right? And then the name of it is, you'd give it a real name, okay? So not like that one. You'd have an asterisk to start with, and you can put any text you want up there to begin with, like with a semicolon, like. And this will never show up anywhere except right here in this program when you put a semicolon. It's just trying to you give it a little bit of a description. So the line type name, this would be, I would call it, I don't know, long, short, dot, something like that, right? And then you give an example that would look like this. Control C. What did they put after that? So pattern line, they put a comma. So you need a comma for the description. So that's the name. And then, make sure I do it the same way they're doing it here. So in the description, they actually retype the name there. Okay. So again, you'd call it long, short, and there's two shorts there, I know, but whatever, dot. And then I drop in an example of this. So this is just an underscore, space, underscore, a dot off your keyboard, a period, and then another space and underscore. You just did that with the keyboard, basically. Okay, then you save it as a .lin file. So save as. Okay, and this is, I'd give it the same name, right? Probably all caps, long, short. You could probably run out of letters eventually. I don't know how long it'll let you put it in there, but long, short, dot. And it's got a, instead of a dot text, of course, it's got to be a .lin. .lin, okay. And where am I going to save it at? Downloads is fine. I'll delete that eventually. So, okay, so I saved it. Save it to your U drive if you're working here. Now to load it, piece of cake. Go to load, file, find it. Where are my downloads? Easier said than done. Okay, there it is. Okay, in my downloads, I must have recently erased my download, not very many in there. So I pick that, open it up. What's that? I did. So there's something going on here. It's not showing up. Okay, so I forgot the asterisk here. So of course, don't forget the asterisk. Big mistake, right? So asterisk. That ought to help. I probably should have made those all caps too. Okay, let's resave this. Okay, and let's try again. Load. File. Hopefully it goes right to it. It did. Long, short, lin. Okay, that looks a whole lot better. Okay, so it gave it the name. Like I said, a lot of times I'd recommend making those all caps. So you pick it, hit OK. Okay, and then it's still not loaded. You still got to pick it again here. Okay, and then hit load. So remember, you gotta load it. Well, no, I guess it is loaded. So you say OK. Now it's not activated. That's what I was trying to remember here. Okay, it's in there, but you got to activate it. So there's my long short dot, and I pick a line. And you can see it. So it's kind of cool that you can make your own line type that fast, you know. Pretty simple, right? Okay, so that's a very basic one. So you have an example in the book you have to do like that. They do get a little bit more complicated, okay, as you go along. So to define a string, what they call a string complex line type, there's just a couple more characters. Okay, so basically it puts some text in it. So this is kind of the coding for that. So say you wanted a line that said 12 volt all the way down the line. Okay, it would be coded like this. So you have your text style. These are all the things you need to find out. So if you want to draw a line that basically has a line and then some text in it, you basically you find out your text style. Okay, you find that you find your text height that you want to use, your dash length, and your spaces, and your text angle. Okay, and rotation, or text angle or rotation. So angle is the angle from the x-axis. R is the rotation of the text in relationship to the line. So typically you'll want it to follow the line. Okay, so if the line's going up and down, the text stays in line with it. Okay, so you'd use an R from that. If you wanted it to go from the x-axis on your computer, then you would use the angle. Okay. A is absolute to the positive x. So that means it's basically going to be right on the positive x-axis. And then you have your offset. So if you want it to go over a little bit in the x from the starting point of the letter, okay, that you'd use an x-axis if you want to go down a little bit from the start, because this is the starting point on a left justified style of text. It would be down here at the bottom left. So you'd put an offset down in the y and over in the x if you want it to go down there. So this 12 volt is a good example. So you got your header line, which is name and description, okay, and then the code line, which is down here. Okay, so the name of this thing is 12 volt. Description is electrical line. They didn't actually draw an example of here. You could have, okay, or I mean type an example. And this is the coding. So you're going to A for alignment, and then you're going to have a line that's 3/4 of an inch long, okay, and then you got to have a bracket. Okay, so it says right here, so you got your A, you got your dash length, and then inside the brackets you got to put your text string. What that just, all that means is what text you're going to put in there. Okay, and it's got to be just like that. It's got to be a bracket, it's got to be in quotes. Okay, so 12 volt is the text that's going to show up. Okay, then they put a comma, and then this is the text style they use, which is the standard one. So you actually have to have that text style available, right, and created in your document. So standard is used most of the time. And then you got your text height, okay, so and that's with an S. Okay, so there's a text height that's S equals 0.125. Okay, and then you have your rotation or angle. So in this case, the rotation is 0. They're not putting any angle in it. Okay, remember R keeps it rotates it to the line. So R is what you're going to use most of the time, unless you want it to stay straight with the x-axis or an angle with the x-axis. And then you have your x offset, so it's scooting it over just over the 1/16 of an inch. That gives a little bit of a space before it. Okay, and it's dropped to 1/16 of an inch. So if it's 0.12 tall, okay, it's 0.125 tall. So they put it down. That's 1/8 of an inch tall, and they dropped it 1/16 of an inch. That centers it, okay, because they dropped it 1/8 of an inch. And then after that, you have a 0.875 space. And the reason you put space in there is so the space actually gives you room for the letter. So that if you got to kind of measure it. So what you'll do on here is you'll type like DT for single line text. You'll type in pick a point for it. Keyboard's not keeping up real good here. DT for single line text. Okay, pick a point. Okay, now it wants to know the height. Okay, so 0.125 would be the height of this one, and the rotation angle is going to be 0. Okay, so now I just type in 12. How did they do that? It's volt caps. Volt. Okay, just like that, and you can see I'm really scaled up here. I've just been drawing a house on that background. All right, so now I need to know how long this is. So I just do like DI for distance. Pick a point like right about how much space do I want? A little bit in front of it, a little bit behind it, and do a distance. Okay, and it says it's 5/8 of an inch long is how long that is. Okay, so that's why they came up with the 0.875 to give it. They're putting about 1/8 of an inch before it and after it. Okay, so you need to know how much space to allow for your letters. Otherwise, the letters will run over the top of the line that you drew in. So you got to add the space that the letters take after you put all this mumble jumble in there about the letters. Okay, so like this one, for example, Control C. If I go back to my notepad. How is that not still open? It's not though. Okay. That's the coding for it. And you gotta be real careful about the spaces and stuff. There's really no spaces in any of this. Alright? And then the example would be 12-volt line. Okay, and save this as a dot len again. This is 12 volt. .lin. Okay, but you load it the same way and it'll draw it. So let's just look at it real quick here. So I'm going to go to properties, other, load, file, pick it, okay, and then you can always also pick it here, 12 volt. Okay, it looks like this space is off there. Current, okay, make sure my LTS is set to 0 here. It wasn't, that was part of the problem. LTS, set it to 1 line. See, if it's real short, it ain't going to work. But if it gets long enough, it works. Because there's not enough space to put the 12 volt. You can see how it's following the line. Okay, so you can see how useful that would be if you're making, different wiring or anything else. All right, the last one, it actually puts a shape in, and it works basically the same way. Okay, so there's a few shapes that are predefined in AutoCAD. Circle 1's one of them. We'll always tell you which one to use. Okay, and you basically put that the shape name, which will tell you where the shape file is, which this one is line type SHX, so that's a shape file. So this is another programmed file that we learn a little bit more about later. We're just going to use pre-programmed ones from AutoCAD for this. The book talks about them in a lot of detail, but we're not going to go that far. Then you got the same kind of thing. You got your scale, this is a new one, so that'd be S equals, and then you have your rotation, and then your X and Y offset again. Okay, and then of course a space that allow for room for it. So however big the shape is, you need a space for it to show up. Otherwise, it's going to be on top of the line again. Okay, and you can kind of a little bit. Usually, I'll tell you the distance, or you can do it by trial and error a little bit. So that's basically done the exact same way when you do one of them. Okay, so you have to do this. You have to do this one and try it out. That's one of the examples you got to do, and then you basically have to do examples 2 and 3 in your book. Okay, and then it gets a little bit harder. Okay, then the last, after you go through the book, make sure you're reading the book as you go so you understand it, because it goes into it says kind of what I just did, but hopefully it'll burn it into your brain a little bit more, so it's not so hard when you get into this custom one. I'll try to do maybe a little video on this one. This one gets kind of tough, so the custom line types. Then you got the homework, of course, too. So what you have, this kind of walks you through it. Okay, most of these are pretty easy. The zigzag one is not easy. Okay, you can see that's like at a 45 degree or something, whatever it tells you to do. But so the first one is a V dash. So basically a dashed line that get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's this one. That's piece of cake. Okay, that's just a bunch of programmed numbers and minuses for spaces. Next one is a gas line. You're basically going to make a gas line, and telling you to put a rotation on it, as described in chapter exercise 3 on page 337. So you have to do that one. Okay, remember the positive and negative for the x-axis. The last one is this zigzag. It's a little tough. I'll try to do a short video on the zigzag. There's a whole big description here, and hopefully that helps you get through it. Okay, it's similar to the one in the AutoCAD Lin file. There's a zigzag in here too. Okay, so it's similar to that, but it's not that one. You're still using the zig line, but it just doesn't go. This one I think just goes up, down, up, down, up, down forever. The one you're programming actually has a space in it. Let's see, or a dash in it. No spaces, a dash in it. So that's the main difference. You kind of have to add that in there. Okay, so and you have one that's upside down and right side up, and they go above the line and below the line. So you have to rotate one of them. So it gets a little tricky. Okay, so that one's a little tougher. So do that one last, and then you have to draw this object right here with all three of them and turn that in. Okay, and of course when you turn that in, it'll have all the line types. So that's how I'll grade it. Hopefully that helps you out. I'll try to do maybe a short video on this one. But hopefully you're able to do it without that. But I'll try to do a short video on the zigzag. It helps out a little bit.